you have a large percentage of the population who have health issues of mind or body or both. It all comes from this disconnection from our nature. And so that's the biggest normality, quote unquote, of our culture. And so when Fromm says that just because a whole lot of people buy into something, that doesn't make it normal or sane, basically they have taken that and updated it to our present time. But I'm riffing on the themes that he raised all those years ago. Personality traits that a society would seek to inculcate in its members in order to keep itself going. I sort of updated that. Now, in Huxley's Brave New World, people are literally gestated in a test tube, and they're biochemically and environmentally trained and developed to fulfill certain roles and to be happy with those roles. Now, we're not gestated in test tubes, and we're not mechanically programmed like that, but almost like we were. Because as Huxley points out in the Brave New World, the thing is to want to do what society expects you to do. So that what we end up wanting to do has got nothing to do with our own particular needs or true nature. It has to do with what the society expects of us. So these three traits. So we're not programmed like in Brave New World, but Huxley wrote that Brave New World not as some kind of a fantasy. He wrote it because this is the way he saw society going. And it's only become more acute since he wrote that book in the 30s, I think.
Yeah.
And since since Erich Fromm wrote and spoke in the mid 20th century. So these character traits of disconnection from ourselves, this society needs us to be disconnected from ourselves. Otherwise, we wouldn't elect the politicians that we elect. If we're connected to our gut feelings, there's a very interesting story about Ronald Reagan. Oliver Sacks, who was a British-American neurologist and writer, he wrote The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat and other very famous books. And he worked with neurologically challenged patients. And he describes an experience that he witnessed on a ward where there were patients who were aphasiac. That means they had a stroke, they lost their capacity for processing language. They're called aphasics. These aphasic patients, as a group, are watching Ronald Reagan, the president, on television, and most of them are laughing, and some of them are outraged. And Sachs asks himself, is it that they don't understand Reagan, or is it that they understand him all too well? And what it was is these big people could not be mesmerized by the words because they didn't understand the words. They're reading his body language. And they read that he was a complete phony. And why was Reagan a phony? Because, not that he intended to be, but because he was a traumatized child whose father was a heavy alcoholic, and Reagan developed this Teflon, non-involved, emotionally distant, inauthentic persona as a way of surviving his childhood. In this insane world, that above it reassuring presence was seen as a political strength. And these aphasiacs who didn't buy into the words, they just saw the real person. They didn't buy it for a minute. So what I'm saying is that if we were connected to our gut feelings, there's a lot of things we wouldn't be choosing. A lot of things we wouldn't buy that we don't need. A lot of people we wouldn't follow who are actually not authentic themselves. So the big way that this society survives is by people disconnected from their gut feelings. So that's what I mean by it's an essential part of our social character is to be disconnected from ourselves. Well, interesting you mentioned the Matrix, because I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that I've heard the story that the people that wrote the Matrix did so after they took part in a self-awareness program, which I won't mention, but they did, so that they could see all of a sudden the gap between how they lived and the reality, Well, look, mass hypnosis. Let's take something simple. Let's take America's wars. Since the 1970s, America's been involved in several wars. Each time there's a war, sooner or later it transpires that it was based on a pack of lies. And this is true in American history. The Mexican-American War was based on a pack of lies. The Spanish-American War was based on a pack of lies. the Vietnam War. All these things were documented. It's not even controversial anymore. But at the time, everybody bought into it. Now, anybody who'd done the research at the time would have known right away that they're being fed lies. And despite the fact that, or say the lie about the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, which never existed, anybody with eyes in their heads knew that that was a manipulation and it wasn't true. The result was that thousands of Americans and 500,000 Iraqis died. But despite the fact that each time the lies are exposed, when the next war comes along, everybody still goes along with it. Well, that's mass hypnosis. It's like there's all this history. And if you take the average American, ask them to string together 2 intelligent sentences about the history of Afghanistan, they couldn't tell you anything. The Ukraine war right now, without going to the politics of it, ask the average American to give you 2 sentences on the history of Ukraine. 2 intelligent consecutive sentences on the history of Ukraine. That didn't start last year, but still going back into history. They couldn't. And yet, they get swept along every time into the narrative. And I'm only talking about these wars. I could talk about any number of political issues. You know, it takes a kind of a passivity. Or take an issue that surely affects us all, climate change. We're talking today, this is January the 16th, I think. Today there's another article about Greenland, about how the ice mass of Greenland is melting at a faster rate than it has for over a millennium. Now, we all see it happening, but we're all totally passive in the face of it. It takes a hypnotic state of passivity. I mean, we're actually seeing the earth changing because of our own activities. Nobody denies that except people in utter emotional denial states, or unless you work for an oil company where it's your job to deny it. But nobody else can ignore what's going on. But you and I, we live our lives as if it wasn't happening. Well, that's a state of hypnotic passivity. So, and so this society, of course, thrives on that, because we get to be led into foreign policy adventures or economic policies that are turned out to be ultimately harmful, but we were, I don't even say willing participants, but we're passive participants. And I could go on, but there's a kind of passivity about us. And it's that passivity that allows advertisers to beam programs into our homes and into our machines that addict our infants. Our infants are getting addicted to technology. You can see it on brain scans. You can see it in their behavior. Would you allow drug dealers into your house to inject heroin into your infants? But we're allowing it. So that takes a tremendous amount of passivity. And we all find ourselves in this trance much of the time, lacking aware of our bodies and our minds and what our life intentions are. I mean, I tell you, I hate the idea of being on my deathbed and looking at it. I'm like, oh, what did I do with all that time? You know, yeah. Even now, you know? Yeah. So, so that waking up and not taking responsibility is a daily task. Again, this culture tends to lull us. It's designed to lull us to sleep all the time. With Thomas Merton, who's a Catholic monk, also and a mystic, and he also lived in mid-20th century, and in his autobiography called The 7-Story Mountain, he talks about that this whole society is designed to lull us to sleep with our products and our Hollywood films and everything else to keep us in a state of passivity.
Yeah, controlled.
Yeah.
Controlled.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and of course, wittingly or unwittingly, we get to be willing participants in this mass hypnosis.
Yeah.
Those devices are designed with addictive blandishments in mind. They're designed to keep. There's a company called Dopamine Lab, which helps to design programs for cell phones. For God, dopamine is a chemical that we need for life, but when we don't generate it through meaningful activity, we get hooked into false activities that spike our dopamine for us. And it's a very deliberate attempt. It's not, they call it neuromarketing. They're actually marketing stuff to get our nervous system hooked, and we participate in it. But what I am saying is that the effect of past generations is passed on to us in this lifetime.
Yeah.
So in Canada, there's a terrible history of our native people being horribly abused by the state. Their children were abducted for 100 years and sent to terrible residential schools where they were sexually, emotionally, and physically abused, and many of them died at the hands of the church and the state. It so happens that our Indigenous Canadians also make up a large percentage of our prison population. They have much higher rates of addiction, suicide, mental health issues, physical illnesses that they never used to have before colonization. And unfortunately, and whereas they used to parent in a much healthier way than so-called advanced societies parent, they really knew how to parent. Hold kids, support them, give them an environment that reared them to be confident, self-assured, socially connected human beings. They knew how to do it. They were much closer to our nature. That's been largely extirpated. As a result, now they abuse their kids. So each generation then passes on its trauma to the next. So in a lot of Native communities, it's almost impossible to find young girls by the time they're teenagers who have not been sexually abused. Now that's the impact of the past, but it's being exerted in this particular lifetime. Then you have what's called epigenetic transmission, which means that the way the genes function, if one generation is traumatized, that alters not the gene structure, but the genetic functioning. And that genetic functioning can be passed on to future generations. That's a new science. I don't think we fully know yet how strong those epigenetic effects are. It's an emerging field. There's been some very interesting research. But in general, and certainly it's already true that when a mother carries an infant, the stresses and traumas that she is burdened with can affect the developing brain and personality of the child already in the womb already. So yes, the experience, and as a Jew, I can tell you that the traumas of previous generations certainly have an impact on, as a part Palestinian, you know the same thing.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's been an unfortunate set of circumstances that have, in my view, imposed the trauma of one people onto another people. So the past trauma does happen, and Eckhart Tolle, the spiritual teacher, talks about the pain body, which is really our accumulated traumas that affect us. And he talks about the pain body can exist on the social and historical level as well.
Yeah.
So women, because of the persecution of women, the witch hunts, the oppression of women, the rape and so on, women carry that pain body. And certain peoples carry a heavier pain body than other peoples. So yeah, it's all multi-generational. It's all historical. And I think that the effect's always exerted in this particular lifetime.
Yeah.
The behavior that gives us temporary pleasure or relief, and therefore we crave it, but then it creates harm in the long term and we can't give it up. That's what an addiction is. So that could be anything. Gambling, sports, eating, shopping, work, relationships, pornography, food, internet, of course, anything.
Yeah.
Anything. Or we could do any of those things. Well, not pornography, but we could do more. We could be interested in sexuality without it being unhealthy, without that being in any way unhealthy. In fact, it being a very healthy expression of who we are. It all has to do with our relationship to it.
Yeah.
In a healthy relationship with any behavior, whether it's to do with say a glass of wine or your work, or your sexuality, or your relationships, or how you relate to food. Clearly, we can have a healthy relationship with food. In fact, we have to. But we can also have a dysfunctional relationship to food that could threaten our health. The key question is, are we aware? Are we conscious? Are we making deliberate choices? Or are we driven by unconscious pain? And so the unhealthy relationship is always driven by unconscious pain. So if I get into a relationship because I'm looking for a life partner with whom I can grow and whom I can cherish and feel cherished by, even if it takes several relationships to get there, that's just healthy human behavior. If I'm engaging in relationships because I need validation and I need somebody to prove to me that I'm lovable, or because I need to dominate somebody, or perhaps get some comfort in feeling dominated, so I'm driven to do it, then it's unhealthy. Same with food.
Yeah.
If I'm eating to enjoy it consciously and to nourish my body, that's great. But if I'm doing it to soothe my pain, and if I'm eating junk food to release the endorphins in my brain so I can temporarily feel better, if I'm using it to stuff down my pain, literally you're stuffing down your pain by stuffing down the food, if that's why I'm doing it, it's unhealthy. So it's not the activity per se, it's one's internal relationship to it. That defines whether it's healthy or addictive. And the key question is, are you craving it? Does it give you temporary pleasure but cause harm in the long term? If yes, it's not a healthy relationship. When the Buddha talked about attachment, he talked about an unhealthy craving and holding on to mind patterns or behaviors or objects or anything. So we're too attached. So letting go of attachment, non-attachment is kind of a Buddhist ideal. Is that we don't look to the outside to fulfill us. That's really what non-attachment is about. It's one thing for me to want my book to do well. It's another thing for me to be attached to the book doing well, so that how the book is doing then determines how I'm doing.
Yeah.
Not a healthy attachment.
Right.
But then we use the word attachment in modern psychology in a totally different way.
Yeah.
Where attachment actually is this relationship between parent and child.
Yeah.
Connection. And it's essential. Yeah. So all mammals are creatures of attachment. No mammal would survive without attachment relationship with the nurturing environment.
Yeah.
Where the attachment is a drive that pulls the parent towards the child and the child towards the parent. Or the drive that pulls two adults together, like it's a gravitational force that pulls two bodies together in order to procreate children, or to live in community, So attachment in that sense is a healthy human drive. Here's the kicker. Those people that don't get their healthy attachment needs met in childhood will become attached in the Buddhist sense to externals. Because they haven't got the internal fulfillment in connection to themselves. Now they have to get it from the outside. So the lack of attachment in the healthy sense leads to that attachment in the unhealthy sense. Well, that's a question of self-awareness, mindfulness, physical practices. A lot of the martial arts are not about killing others. It's about being present to yourself.